If you're watching this, you've probably used a lot of different note-taking tools like Google Docs or Notion, or if you're really crazy, even Emacs. But you may or may not have heard of this specific one. So the one I'm about to tell you about is called Obsidian. And I think Obsidian is probably the main reason why I was able to land a CS internship this summer. And honestly, that's not even an exaggeration. This video is not going to be an exact, like tutorial on how like I structure, Obsidian. More so, it's going to be a video on how I use Obsidian and why I think you should use Obsidian as well. So I think for the first one, I'm just going to give you the overall structure of how my notes look like. So on the left, you can see how I've structured each folder. So for the first one, it's just rough notes. This is kind of like where I keep all my rough notes that don't fit into any other folders. So you can see like my 4-year plan for school and stuff like that. Source materials. So I have 3 folders listed in here. One for definitions, another for images, and another for textbooks. I won't go into the textbooks one mainly because I may or may not have gotten those, illegally, but yeah, let's take a look at definitions. So yeah, definitions, anytime, I come across a word that I don't know or would like to define, I just place them in here. I'll go more into how I do that later. But as for images, this is just like, screenshots or whatever it may be that are linked inside different notes. And then I have tags, indexes. Those 2 folders I actually don't use. For templates is probably the most important folder, besides my main notes. And I'll just give like a brief overview of how they look like. My daily notes. So Obsidian comes with its own daily note, kind of like extension. But essentially what this is, every time you open your computer or open Obsidian will automatically create a new daily note. So essentially you can put in like your to-dos or any other things that you may want to put in at the start of your day. Full note, this is my own custom note. And essentially I've just structured it, where the title is at the top and I have the date and the time as well as the status of the note. And my notes have 3 different statuses. So I have child. This just refers to a note that's like, that's just been newly created and I haven't like fully fleshed out. The second status is baby. Actually, sorry, baby is my first one. So baby is one that hasn't been fully fleshed out. Child is a step above baby, and a note that's been fully fleshed out is called adult. And so this just makes it easier for me to find notes based off their status. So I can go back and see which notes I need to flesh out more. And so, yeah, that's kind of what I have for status. Tags is just like anything that the note relates to. So for example, like computer science or yeah, computer systems, computer architecture, anything like that you put in under tags. And then again, yeah, title, and then any references, whether it's like a YouTube video or an article or a research paper, whatever it is, they go under here. And then my lecture note, this is specifically for lectures. So the class I would put under here, subject, whether there's computer science, statistics, anything like that, physics, date, just like the other one, just whatever the date the note was created on, as well as the professor that's teaching that class. And so anytime I want to create a new note, let's say I want to create a new note under stat 131. So I would just come here, create a new note, and then I just have it, what is it? I think it's like Option T to create a new template. So let's say I want to use the lecture template. It'll automatically populate the lecture template. And then I can just come in here and say, let's just say lecture 1. And then whatever the topic is, let's just say probability. And then I can just put in the professor. I can put in whatever the class is, which is stat 131. And then subject, which is statistics. And so that's essentially how that would work. And so moving on to some of the other folders, I have utilities. I won't go into these 3, mainly because it's more specific to how I've tailored my daily notes. But if you would like to see a tutorial on that, then I can definitely do that. And then 2025, this is where I just store all my daily notes. I haven't used this as much recently, mainly because I'm not in school, but this is kind of, where all my daily notes go. And you can configure that too within Obsidian. But again, I won't go into the exact specifics on how to do that. And so the main reason why I think this was really beneficial for me, at least like for getting my internship and also school as well, is just for how easy Obsidian makes it to jot down notes as well as connect other notes to each other. And so I think I'll use one of my leetcode notes as an example. Let's do this one for linked lists. So as you can see, I just have the title of whatever the leetcode problem is, which is removing the nth node from the end of a list. And yeah, this node is pretty old, but as you can see, the status is child, although I think this should actually be adult. I think this one's fully finished. But yeah, that's essentially how I just go about it. So by default, it's child. Actually, I should change that in my templates. But anyways, yeah, then the tags. So I have leetcode, I have 2 pointers, and I have linked list as the tags. And so if I click on 2 pointers, for example, I can see every other note that's been tagged with 2 pointers. So let's say one day I just want to go over leetcode problems that relate to 2 pointers. Then I can just go back here and then just go over all the notes that I've taken for it. And so just, yeah, looking into it again, this is just the title. As for code, Obsidian lets you insert code blocks. So for example, let's say I want to insert, so you can use Obsidian's like own. So you just right click and then you go in here, insert, and then code block. And then you just specify the language. So JavaScript, Java, Python, whatever the language is, you can just put it in here. And so that's how you do it. And then let's just say print hello world. And so as you can see, that's just kind of how it looks like. And so yeah, it just makes it look really nice, especially when you're coming back. And so Obsidian is essentially just Markdown. So as you can see, this is heading, the third header. This is first header. And so yeah. Not only that, but Obsidian also lets you link words to links essentially. And so this one's just linked to the actual leetcode problem. Yeah, so I just have all the code for the problem as well as an explanation for it. And then also the reference as well, which is just neetcode. But this essentially is really helpful, especially when you're coming back to certain problems. You already have the code here as well as the explanation that you had written originally. So if you're stuck on this problem, for example, and you don't remember how to do it exactly, then you can just come back here. Before you even look at the code, you can just look at the explanation and try to solve it again. But then if you do get stuck, then you can come back here. If you want to take this like a step further, then I would actually recommend using Anki just so that these notes aren't just like left here to die. So at the end of the day, you want to make sure that you're constantly refreshing your memory on notes. This definitely isn't for all types of notes. For example, let's say you're jotting notes on a book or something. You don't want to necessarily keep coming back to it. But for leetcode, for example, these are things that you need to refreshing on essentially, like as often as you can. And so Anki is just a flashcard tool. It's closest thing I would say is like Quizlet. But it'll test you on different problems depending on how you've structured your notes, and your flashcards. But yeah, that's essentially it for that. And so I just go in here. So if it's arrays and hashing, binary search, linked list, lightning windows, trees, 2 pointers, that's just kind of how I've structured all my notes. And this also you don't have to structure it exactly how I've done it. And this structure also works not just like for CS classes, like any class that you have, whether it's, anything it works for anything essentially. And so I also have other coding notes as well. But that's essentially how Obsidian has helped me. Obsidian also has some pretty neat tools, and they also have community plugins that you can use as well. So for example, the theme I'm using is called, actually, let me just take a look. It's called Obsidian Growth Box. And so it changes it from the default theme, which I believe is just, Obsidian's default theme. And so it just gives it this look, which I kind of like. Not only that, but Obsidian also has a graph feature. Actually, before I go into graphs, I just want to show you how exactly you can link different nodes together. So for example, let's say I want to link a note to this note. So I can go, you can just see your most recent, but this is probably tedious. So let's say I want to link this one, reverse linked list. Then I can just come in here and type in the name of the note and then link the note to this note. So if I were to click on it, it would take me to the reverse linked list note. And so I think that's pretty neat, especially if you know that certain notes tie into one another, or one note supersedes another or precedes another. And so that's kind of like one thing I really like about Obsidian. And so all this linking gets turned into a graph, essentially. And let me just zoom in here. But you can see how every single node ties to one another. And so the biggest one right now, or the tag that I'm using, is computer science. And you can see all the different nodes that are directly linked to it. The next big one is my discrete math class. And then I have leetcode up here. And then I just have my stats class up here. And then you can just see it's pretty nice. Although I don't use it that often, but I just keep it down here. But that's essentially it. If you do want to use Obsidian, it's free to use. The only thing you would have to pay for is if you want to sync your notes to the cloud or something like that. Obsidian has like their own version of that. But I personally just use Git. I won't go into the specifics of that, but I can do an extended tutorial on how I fully structure all my notes and use Git to link everything up. But yeah, hopefully that convinced you, and hopefully I didn't ramble too much. But yeah, thanks for checking it out.